Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. Love Against the Throne. Episode 23. Chapter 110. Gemma's POV. Today is Cassius's 25th birthday. I opened my eyes as he held me tight to his chest. Last night I did not have any false alarms, and for once, I slept comfortably. Neither of us had gotten much sleep in nearly a week, so it was refreshing to wake up feeling renewed. His breath fanned the back of my neck. I stroked his muscular arm softly and felt him stir behind me. His lips planted soft kisses on my neck and up to my cheek. And before long, we were locked in a deep kiss. I rolled onto my back, and he hovered over part of me. I peered into his blue eyes. "Happy birthday, my king," I whispered against his lips. He pulled back from the kiss slightly and ran the back of his hand down my cheek. "Good morning, my queen. How are you this morning?" "Rested." "For once." I laughed. "Me too. I have a feeling about today." He placed his hand on my belly, and the twins responded. "What sort of feeling?" I asked him. He shrugged. "Just a feeling." We kissed a little longer. They usually were sore, but right now, it felt good. "That feels good, Cass," I whispered. I felt myself getting wet. "I can smell your arousal." He growled. "I'm sorry, it feels so good. I miss your hands on me." He sighed and looked into my eyes. "I best stop before I can't." I whimpered as he pulled away from me and stood up. I watched as he walked into the bathroom. He was only wearing thin silky boxers. "Wiggle that for me, birthday boy." He wiggled and disappeared into the bathroom. It was still rather early in the morning to be up. I looked at the clock, and it read 6 a.m. I sighed and snuggled back down on the bed, and closed my eyes. I was jolted awake minutes later as Cassius placed his hands on my arms. He was freshly showered and dressed in a pair of khaki pants with a white polo shirt. "I'm sorry, love. I didn't mean to startle you," he lightly kissed my lips. "Where are you going? I thought you were off today." I mumbled. "I told you last night that I am going golfing with my father, your father, and your brother." I nodded as the conversation came back to me. "Oh right. I forgot." He chuckled and leaned his forehead against mine. "Take it easy today, love. My mother and sister have my party under control. I wish I could help them. Mom understands why you can't." "Well, Tiffany will be here later to keep me company," I told him. My sister had stayed after Luna classes finished to be with me until the twins were born. Her mate Garrett had to return to his pack, and I knew my sister missed him. I was thankful she was here but felt guilty she was away from her mate. He kissed me deeply again as there was a knock on the door. He growled lowly. "I'll be right there," he barked. I snickered as he kissed me again and then stood up. I whimpered at the loss of contact. He walked over and opened the door. Terry, my dad, and brother all walked in. I sat up on the bed and nearly fell off laughing, looking at my father's outfit. "What are you wearing, Dad?" He was wearing pinkish plaid pants and a green plaid polo shirt. "What, you don't like it?" He turned around. "It looks ridiculous." I laughed. I looked at Ian, and luckily he was wearing a similar outfit to Cassius's. Just khaki pants and a light blue shirt. My father mock frowned at me. When did Gemma Mackenzie become so concerned with fashion? I rolled my eyes. I'm not concerned. And it's Gemma Fury. I glanced at my mate as he smirked at my father. You will always be Gemma Mackenzie to me, my father looked at Cassius. Terry scoffed. Let's get going, fellas. Don't want to be late. Cassius turned to me once more. See you later, love. Bye, Cass, I said as the men filed out the door. Wiggle for me, I called after Cassius. My brother rolled his eyes as Cassius responded to my request. Seriously, dude, Ian mumbled. Hey, if my queen asks me to wiggle me, I wiggle me. Ian snorted. You are so whipped, dude. He said as he closed the door. Sighing, I got out of bed and waddled into the bathroom. I relieved myself and then took a shower. I felt a dull pain in my lower back as I dried off. I went into the closet, put on my lavender sundress, and pulled my blonde hair into a ponytail. I then sat on the couch to watch TV. It was too early to wake up Nikki. I thought about having the kitchen send my breakfast up now. I lay against the couch and closed my eyes as the dull pain in my back persisted. I was lulled back to sleep and was awakened later by a knock on the door. Come in. It was Irene with my and Nikki's breakfast. I looked at the clock, and I had nodded off for an hour or so. Good morning, Irene. How are you today? She bowed to me. Good morning, Your Majesty. I am doing fine today. Did I wake you? I nodded. Yes, but I keep nodding off randomly this morning. I am sorry. I shook my head as I stood up from the couch. Don't be. I stretched my body, hoping the dull ache would lessen. Set the food by the couch. I have to go wake up my son. She did as I told her, and I walked out of the room. I waddled to Nikki's room and opened the door. My son was sitting on his bed. Hi, Mommy. He said brightly to me. Morning, baby. Are you ready to get dressed and eat breakfast? He nodded and hopped off his bed. I let him pick out his outfit. I was impressed when he dressed himself. That's a good boy, Nikki, you are getting so good at that. I am a big boy. He proudly proclaimed as I grabbed his little hand and walked him back to my room. He ran over to the couch as I grabbed his food off of the cart. He had eggs with sausage and potatoes this morning with some toast. I set it on the coffee table, and he slid off the couch and dug right into his food. I put mine on my tray and started eating, but I began to feel queasy. The food was good, but I just felt nauseous. I only ate a few bits before I had to stop. I nibbled on some toast while watching Nikki devour his food. Are you excited to go to the zoo with Nana? I asked him. Liz wanted to take him to the zoo as her sister was visiting her, and she wanted to introduce her sister to Nikki. He nodded. She said we could watch the tigers all day. You sure love your tigers. I tousled his hair and sipped some orange juice. It helped settle my stomach a bit. Nikki sat on the couch beside me, and I turned the TV to his cartoons. He lay against my stomach, and I gently stroked his back. One of the twins kicked him in the cheek. Ouch! He whined. One of the twins kicked me. I know, Nikki. I felt it too. When are they coming out? He was almost 4 but very aware that babies were growing inside of me. We hadn't quite told him how they got in there or how they were getting out. Cassius and I would save that talk for much later. They will come out soon, Nikki. He looked at me. They sure are taking a long time. I laughed. No kidding. There was a knock on the door. Why don't you go answer that? I bet it's Nana. He hopped off the couch and ran over to the door. Liz and a she-wolf that looked similar to her walked in, her sister Francine. I remember Francine visiting Zephyr Moon while I was growing up. Liz smiled as she picked up Nikki. There is my noodle. Nana. He squeaked. I need to see tigers. Liz looked towards me. Good morning, Gemma. You remember my sister Franny, right? I nodded. Hi, Aunt Franny. I waved to the other woman who was looking around my room with awe. Oh Gemma, look at you. She stepped towards me. Or should I say Queen Gemma now? Gemma is fine. This room is wow. I thought alphas had fancy rooms. She looked around in awe. I hate to ask, but can I look at your bathroom? I laughed. Sure. Liz rolled her eyes as Franny trotted into my bathroom. She always liked the fancy places. We laughed as we heard Franny squeal about how awesome the bathroom was. That was the biggest tub I have ever seen and that shower. She said to me before looking at Nikki, who Liz was still holding. Oh, look at this bean. He looks just like Jeremy did at this age. My heart ached as Liz frowned slightly. Yeah, he does, Liz replied sadly. Franny reached out a hand to Nikki. Hello, Nikki. I am your Aunt Franny. Nikki looked shyly at the ground and pressed himself against Liz. Hi, he mustered out. Oh, he's shy just like Jeremy was, Franny said to Liz. Liz pressed her lips together. We best get going, Fran. She looked at me. We'll be back in time for the party. Party? Franny looked between Liz and I. It's Cassius's birthday today. And you are both welcome to come to the party. There will be lots of yummy food and dancing and stuff. Franny smiled. Well, that sounds like a barrel of fun. She looked at Liz. Right, Lizzie? Right. Anyways, we'll see you later, Gemma. Bye, I waved. Nikki, you be a good boy for Nana and Aunt Franny, I told my pup. Bye, Mommy. He waved as Liz carried him out of my room. I sat watching TV for a few more hours till Tiffany and Esther arrived in my room. I was happy to see my sisters. Tiffany painted my toes and fingernails while we all just chatted about nonsensical girl stuff. Another hour passed, and Ainsley joined us. She sat on the couch, exhausted. Her bump was becoming a little more pronounced. Gracie started kicking today, she said with her hand on her belly. Titus was so happy about it. He is so excited to be a dad. That's great, that he wants to be a father to a pup that isn't technically his, Esther said to Ainsley. Ainsley narrowed her eyes at Esther. Grace is his. He may not have fathered her. But she is his. Like how Nick is Cassius's. Titus is like my brother and sees her as his daughter no matter what. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you, Ainsley. Esther held up her hand. Speaking of vampires, Mom is still upset that Daisy is mates to a vampire. Tiffany joined in. I know how mad she is, Tiff. She keeps calling me about it. Between her and Izzy, it's ridiculous. Like I told both of them, it was the goddess's decision, and we should respect that. Ainsley snorted. I think it's funny how mad my mother is about it, especially since I am engaged to a vampire. She said it was different. Because Titus is just a regular vampire, whereas Dominic is the crown prince. Titus is not just a regular vampire. He has high standing with the king. And besides, Dominic is a hybrid like his mother. He even has a wolf, I explained as Tiffany had finished painting my nails. That looks good, Tiff. It doesn't make you nervous to think of your daughter being the queen of the vampires someday? Esther asked. I shrugged. Well, that won't be for a very long time from now, and she may not be the queen. Cassius and I agreed, along with Gin and Rom, that we won't force the kids to be together. If when they both reach adulthood and decide they don't want to be together, we won't force them. Well, that's good you are giving your daughter a choice, Ainsley agreed. I am surprised my brother agreed to that. He was always so adamant that the mate bond was the only way to go for love. I laughed. His sister helped him see the light on that. I winked at Ainsley, who giggled. We continued laughing and talking while watching Disney movies for hours until it was almost time for the party. The girls all left to get dressed for the party. Cassius returned from golfing covered in grass and dirt. What kind of golf did you play? I asked him as I saw bruises and cuts on his arms. He laughed. I may have got into it with Ian. I rolled my eyes as he took off his shirt and walked into the bathroom. My back hurt as I stood up. The dull pain in my back had steadily increased, and I was just feeling off. The twins hadn't been kicking much all day, and I was a bit worried even though I still felt their life forces. Leonora assured me that they were just fine also. I joined Cassius in the shower, and we washed each other sensually before getting out. I hissed in pain as I was putting on my dress. I wore the same pink dress I had worn for my shower. Cassius put on a black Armani suit with a white shirt. He looked like $1 billion, and I couldn't help but stare. I glanced at the clock. We better get down to the party before your mother comes up here and kills us. He laughed and wrapped his arms around me. Are you feeling all right, love? I sense something off with you, he asked while placing soft kisses on my lips. I feel okay, I mumbled against his lips. I'll unplug your scooter. He released me, and I followed him out of the closet. My scooter was waiting just outside our door. I sat down and giggled as I started it up, and it lurched forward. Once we finally reached the ballroom, we went towards our families. Our parents and siblings all looked our way as we approached. My son was with my parents, and he ran over to us. He liked riding around on my scooter with me. He was wearing a nice shirt and black pants. Hi, baby. Did you have fun at the zoo? He shrugged. Nana and Aunt Franny kept arguing. I hugged him to me. I'm sorry to hear that. But then Grandma let me help blow up balloons for Daddy's party. He said to me. I looked towards my mother, who winked at me. Did you blow up a lot of balloons? He nodded and held out his little arms. This many? I laughed as Cassius was talking to his parents. My mother walked over to me. Liz and her sister kept fighting, so she called me, and I was able to take care of Nick for a while. Thank you, Mom. What were Liz and Franny fighting about? She shrugged her shoulders. Who knows? Liz and Franny fight all of the time. Well, this morning, Franny kept mentioning Jeremy. My mother sighed. That probably set Liz off. Izzy stepped forward and clapped her hands. Okay, let's get this party started. Cassie, Gemma, you two lead us in. She said to us. Cassius stood at my side as Nikki stood between my arms on the scooter. We lead the families into the ballroom that was already full of people. I waved at my friends and others I knew. It was set up fancier than the baby shower had been. I parked my scooter behind the elegant table set on the stage. Cassius carried Nikki to a seat, and I sat beside them. Izzy and Terry walked up to the microphone. Good evening, everyone, Terry took the lead. I am glad to see you all here to celebrate my son's 25th birthday. The crowd clapped. It's a momentous birthday this year as he found his beautiful mate and our new queen. And they are expecting the future heirs of this kingdom. Now, let's make this party the best it can be, Izzy interjected. She turned to Cassius. Enjoy your party, my son. Cassius nodded to her. Thank you, Mom, Dad. The waiters came forward with lots of good food, but none of it looked appetizing to me. I had only eaten sparingly today. Everything made me queasy, and the only thing that didn't was bread or crackers. Cassius looked at my empty plate as I nibbled bread. Why aren't you eating? I can't, I mumbled as I nibbled bread. You have to try, he pleaded with me and held up his fork with a piece of steak on it to my lips. I sighed and let him feed me the steak. I chewed it, and it tasted good, but it also made me queasy. Sorry, I just feel off tonight. I didn't want to tell him about the pain as I didn't want to ruin his party. The music started, and I wasn't feeling well enough to dance with my mate. He ended up dancing with Ainsley or Tiffany. I tried not to cry. I wasn't jealous of my sisters. I just wanted to dance with my mate on his birthday. A nanny came to take Nicky up to his room for the rest of the night. I waved as he went with her. The ache in my lower back was slowly increasing, and I felt pressure in my lower body like I had to use the restroom. Cassius was dancing with his mother as I sauntered to the bathroom. My mother followed me in and felt my forehead. Gemma dear, you look pale. She said to me as I stood in the middle of the room. I sighed as I looked at my mother. I just feel off, Mom, I mumbled as I walked towards a stall. I reached the stall, and an intense, sharp pain hit me, and I cried out and clutched my stomach and held onto the door. Gemma! My mother cried out. I slowly sank to my knees as the contraction racked through my body. I hit the floor and screamed out as my mother knelt in front of me. Tears welled up as I panted and looked at my mother. I felt something wet trickling down my thighs. My water just broke. Gemma's POV. My water just broke, I said to my mother as she knelt in front of me. I tried mind-linking him, but I was hitting his mental wall. Normally as his mate, I could break through the wall, but I was weakened and having a hard time concentrating on breaking through the mental wall. Leonora, I can't get through to Cassius. I'm on it, Gemma, hang on, my wolf replied. He has a wall up, I whimpered to my mother. I can't contact him. She stood up. I'll go get him. She then ran out of the bathroom. Cassius! I cried through the link with everything I had as another contraction ripped through my body. I screamed out as I planted my hands on the floor in front of me. Cassius, I need you! I cried through the link. Then I heard a room-shaking growl rattle the palace. The contraction subsided as the door of the bathroom burst open, revealing my very concerned mate. My mother and his mother were right behind him. Cassius's POV. I was enjoying myself dancing with my sister and Gemma's sister. I twirled aimlessly around the floor. I felt terrible that Gemma couldn't dance as she wasn't feeling well tonight. I looked back at her sad face a couple of times. I waved a couple of times, but she just looked like she was not having a good time. After the song ended, I looked back at the table and didn't see Gemma. I looked around the room and couldn't find her. I began to feel a dull pain in my head like someone was trying to link me. I had my mental wall up tonight so that I could have a fun night. Only Deke and Gemma could break through the wall. The pain grew more as I heard Enoch started growling. Lower your mental wall, he said to me. I saw Melinda running towards me with a wide-eyed look. Cassius! Gemma's voice cried through the link just as Melinda reached me. She placed her hands on my arms. Cassius, Gemma is in labor. Her water broke. Melinda explained to me. Cassius, I need you, her voice cried through the link. I let out a loud growl that silenced the room and looked at my mother-in-law. Where is she? Bathroom, Melinda pointed. I ran past her as the crowd parted for me. I barely noticed that Melinda and my mother were behind me. I burst through the bathroom door to see my mate on her hands and knees on the ground screaming in pain. Gemma! I yelled and reached for her as her screaming quieted. Her eyes were tightly closed as she panted. Breathe, Gemma! You can do this! Don't panic! I blurted out. She opened her eyes and glared at me. What? Why are you glaring at me? I said as I paced in front of her. I then felt a sharp sting as someone had slapped me. Cassius! My mother barked at me. She had slapped me. Get yourself together! I stopped pacing as my mother growled at me. Now, calm down and pick up your mate and rush her to the hospital. I don't think you want your children born on a bathroom floor. I shook my head. No, I don't want that. I turned and knelt beside Gemma. I am going to pick you up now, love. She nodded quietly as I took her into my arms and she wrapped her arms around my neck. I stood up and started running out of the bathroom and down the hall into the ballroom. Everyone was quietly watching the scene. My father and Gemma's father were waiting for us as I stopped and looked at the crowd. Enjoy the party, everyone. I have to get the queen to the hospital to give birth to our pups. I said, and the crowd erupted in cheers as I ran towards the door. Gemma whimpered in my arms, and as I carried her out of the ballroom and into the hall, she was hit with another contraction. She held tight onto my neck as she screamed out in pain. I ignored the pain in my neck as I held her tight. I touched my forehead to hers as tears ran out of her closed eyes. "I'm right here, love," I whispered to her. I leaned against a wall while she shuddered in my arms. The contractions seemed to last minutes before she loosened the hold on my neck. She opened her eyes. "I'm sorry," she cried. I kissed her forehead and continued running towards the hospital, linking the staff to be ready for our arrival. I was relieved as the hospital came into view, and the door was held open as I rushed inside. Angela was waiting for us by the front desk and ushered me down the hall to a room. I placed Gemma on the bed. Angela began to examine Gemma. "How long have you been in labor?" she asked Gemma. "It just started," my mate replied as the nurses set up the various equipment, including a heart monitor. "Because you are almost fully dilated." Gemma sighed. "I have been feeling a dull pain in my lower back all day." Angela let out a long breath. "So you have been in labor all day, it seems." Tears welled up in Gemma's eyes. "I never felt that with Nikki, so I didn't think anything of it." "It's all right. You got here on time," Angela said as Gemma let out a scream. I watched my mate's face contort from the extreme pain. I reached for her hand, and she grabbed me and squeezed so hard I dropped to my knees. I had to hold back my scream of pain. "You can do this, Gemma." "Shut up!" she screamed at me. "Why did I let you do this to me?" I looked at her with my mouth open, trying to form words. Angela squeezed my shoulder. "Cassius, don't let anything she says affect you. She doesn't mean any of it. She is in a lot of pain. Just smile and nod." I nodded at my friend as Gemma stopped screaming. She lay on the bed, panting heavily. "I can't do this," she whimpered. I leaned my forehead against hers. "Yes, you can. You are the strongest woman I know." The door of the room opened, and our family tried squeezing into the room. "You can't all be in here," Angela said with her hands on her hips. "Two of you max along with Cassius," she ordered. My mother and Melinda exchanged looks. "We'll stay while everyone else waits," Melinda said to Angela. My mother nodded. "Yep," she looked at our fathers and siblings. "The rest of you go wait outside." Phil took a few steps towards Gemma, who looked up at him with tear-streaked eyes. "You got this, Gemma." He smiled at her and kissed her forehead. "Thank you, Daddy," she said softly as everyone walked out. My mother stood beside me while Melinda took up the other side and held Gemma's other hand. The nurses finished hooking up all of the equipment. Gemma looked up at me. "I am sorry that I ruined your party," she mumbled. I pulled a chair towards the bed and sat down. I peered into her violet eyes. "It's just a party. Nothing, and I mean nothing, is more important than what is happening right now. This is the best day ever, Gemma." She sniffled and then gripped my hand tighter as another contraction hit her, and she let out another scream. Her eyes closed tightly as she gritted her teeth. "Breath, Gemma," her mother said to her. I ignored the pain in my hand as I rested my forehead against Gemma's. That seemed to quiet her screaming a bit as I felt the sparks of our connection. I wish I could use the mate bond to take away some of her pain, I said to Enoch. He whimpered in response. Unfortunately, this is the only pain that we cannot help our mate with. We can comfort her, but that's about it, my wolf explained. Gemma panted as her grip on my hand loosened. I can feel a head, she whimpered out. I looked around the room. Where is Angela? I quickly mind-linked my friend to get her back in here. Seconds later, she ran in. I stepped out for a minute, she said to me while sitting on a stool in front of the bed. She lifted the sheet and sighed. Well, one of them is coming. She looked at Gemma. Next contraction, you need to push, all right, Gemma, Angela instructed my mate. She nodded her head. Are there feet? She whimpered out to Angela. The doctor laughed. What? Feet? Are there feet sticking out? Melinda started laughing at that, and I glanced at my mother in confusion. No, it's a head trying to come out, Angela said and glanced at Melinda. She's probably asking because she was a breech birth, Melinda explained. Oh, Angela replied. Lucky for you, these two are in the right positions. Gemma's grip on my hand tightened as the next contraction hit her, and she screamed while Angela was yelling at her to push. I ignored the pain in my hand while looking Gemma in the eyes. Her mother and my mother held her knees apart while I helped her sit up slightly as Angela instructed. I can't do this. Gemma cried out as she pushed. Keep going, Gemma, Angela said. Someone's head is almost out. 3 more long hard pushes and Gemma's screams, and I heard the first loud cry of one of my pups. And we have a boy, Angela declared and held up my crying son. Tears welled up in my eyes as I looked at him. Gemma sobbed also, and I leaned down to kiss her. Angela handed Malcolm off to a nurse as she prepared Gemma to push again for Daisy. Okay, I don't see the other head yet, but she's coming, Angela said to Gemma. Next contraction, push again. Gemma panted with her eyes closed on the bed as we listened to Malcolm crying. Is he all right? He's just fine, Gemma, Angela told her. They are examining him and cleaning him off. Pain shot through my hand as Gemma gripped it tightly. Her face contorted in pain as she screamed through the pain while pushing. Oh goddess! She cried out. You got this, Gemma. Her mother encouraged her. My mother was squeezing my arm as Gemma pushed. Her grip on my hand loosened as she panted some more. I could see the fatigue in her eyes and the sweat on her body. Love, you are doing so great, I said to her, and she barely nodded. I wanted to put myself in her shoes and take away the pain. She began screaming again with the next contraction. Angela and our mothers were giving her encouragement. The head is out. Keep going, Angela said to her. A few more pushes later, and I heard a second loud cry as Daisy emerged into the world. Angela held up my crying daughter for us to see as Gemma sobbed beside me. I leaned down and kissed her. You did it, love. I am so proud of you. This is the best day ever. She loosened the grip on my hand, and I looked towards the other side of the room where my pups were both crying. I stood up and walked towards them. They had been cleaned off and were in separate little cradles. I reached out my hands and gently placed them on both of their chests, and they both stopped crying and looked up at me with their mother's violet eyes. A sob erupted out of me as tears flowed down my cheeks. "Welcome to the world, Malcolm and Daisy," I said to them. Each one had a tiny hand gripping each of my thumbs. It was a magical moment until I heard Melinda cry out. "Gemma!" Melinda yelled as I heard the machines going crazy. I looked back towards my mate and Angela, and the nurses were pushing her and my mother away from Gemma while they worked frantically on Gemma. I walked away from the twins, who started crying again. "What's going on?" I demanded. Her heart stopped, Angela said quickly as she had Gemma. I shouted and tried stepping towards my mate as I felt pain in my own heart. One of the nurses placed a hand on my chest. "I'm sorry, Your Majesty, but we need room to work." Melinda stood beside me sobbing as I just watched wide-eyed as Angela and the nurses scrambled to revive Gemma while my newborn pup screamed behind me. My best day ever was about to become my worst day. Melinda leaned against me, and I wrapped my arm around her and let her cry against my chest. I watched as Angela shocked Gemma's chest. Then there was a sigh of relief as the machine's beeping returned to normal. "Oh, thank goddess," Angela breathed out. Her heart is beating again. The pain in my own chest subsided. "Get closer to her. She needs our strength." "Leonora's is depleted from the birth," Enoch instructed me. I did as my wolf said and walked towards my mate. "I need to be close to her," I told the nurses, who let me sit beside her. I took her hand and leaned my forehead against hers. Her breathing was normal, but she was momentarily unconscious. "Cassius, she should be okay now." I suspect her being a white wolf that the birth used all of her strength. I took in Angela's words as I listened to my mate breathe and my pups scream. I looked back at my pups as they were being swaddled. I stood up and walked over to them and placed my hands on their little chests, and they stopped crying. I smiled as I picked up Daisy. "Hello, my beautiful little girl." My mother was next to me. "They are both perfect, Cassie," she said softly to me. "Can you pick up Malcolm and place him in my other arm?" I told her while shifting Daisy. "They need to meet their mother." She smiled at me and gently picked up Malcolm. She looked lovingly at her first grandson for a moment before placing him in my arms. Tears fell down my cheeks as I cradled both of my children and then carried them back to Gemma. Her mother was sitting on the other side and looked lovingly at the pups. "They are absolutely beautiful, Cassius," Melinda said to me. I smiled at her and then looked at my mate. "Wake up, Gemma. You have to meet our children." "Melinda, let's give them a few minutes to themselves," my mother spoke out. Melinda rose from her seat and nodded. "We'll be right outside, Cassius." She touched my arm softly, and then she and my mother walked out. It was just Gemma, the twins, and I after Angela finished her exam. "Gemma," I spoke out softly. She stirred on the bed. "Come on, pups. Help me wake up your mother." They both seemed to understand my request, and both made crying noises. Gemma stirred again and, this time, opened her eyes. Momentarily she looked confused, then looked over at me, sitting beside her with our newborns in my arms. "Cassius," she whispered. "Gemma," I replied. "Do you want to hold your pups?" She nodded and sat up a little. I leaned over as she reached out to take Daisy into her arms. Carefully she cradled our daughter. "Oh, my goddess! We made these Cassius!" She sobbed and looked at our daughter with so much love. "She is so beautiful. Like her mother," I smiled at her. "Would you like to hold Malcolm too?" She nodded and carefully placed our son in her other arm. She cried harder as she held both of our pups in her arms. Daisy and Malcolm were calm and content in their mother's arms. I leaned over and kissed her. "Thank you for giving me the best birthday gift ever." She smiled at me. "I'm glad you like them. Because I couldn't think of anything else to get you." I laughed out loud. "Oh, Gemma! This is the best day ever." The door of the room opened, and our parents and siblings all squeezed into the room. "Is she going to be all right?" Phil spoke out first. "Yes, she will be fine now," Angela answered from the back of the crowd. Everyone seemed to sigh with relief. They circled the bed. My parents, Gemma's parents, my sister, and her siblings all looked with wonder at the Werewolf Kingdom's future. "Meet Malcolm Alexander Fury and Daisy Victoria Fury," Gemma announced. "Daisy, Malcolm, this is your family." Our twins were then passed around gently to their grandparents and aunts, and uncle. I wished Nick could be here to meet his new brother and sister, but it was nearly midnight. Melinda had told me that he was with Liz and that she would bring him here first thing in the morning. After everyone got their turn at holding the babies, they all finally left, and it was just Gemma and I laying on the bed while Gemma nursed them. She sighed. "What does the future hold for us, Cassius? When is this demon uprising? And how are our innocent babies a part of it?" I traced my hand down her cheek. "Love, let's not think of that now. Let's enjoy this beautiful moment with our beautiful pups." She finished nursing, and I took Daisy into my arms while she held onto Malcolm. Gemma showed me how to burp Daisy while she did the same with Malcolm. Moments later, the door opened again, and Nick ran into the room, followed by Liz. Nick ran over to the bed. "I'm sorry," he somehow knew they had arrived and insisted on coming to see them, Liz explained. Nick jumped up and down by the bed. "I need to see brother and sister." "Come on, Nick," I told him, and Liz lifted him and set him on the bed. He crawled over to me and looked at his little sister. "It's all right, thank you, Liz," Gemma said to her. "Your babies are beautiful, Gemma," Liz responded. "Will Nicky be all right with you too for now?" "Of course, Liz." "Thank you for watching him," I replied to her. "Have a good night." "Happy birthday, Cassius." She smiled and then left the room. They are so tiny. Nick was now lying in between Gemma and I. He was looked back and forth at the babies. "You are the big brother now, Nicky. This is Malcolm, your little brother," Gemma explained and then indicated Daisy. "That is Daisy, your little sister." "They are cute," Nick said out loud. He nestled down in between us. I couldn't be happier than I was at this moment with all three of my children and my mate. I would give my life to keep them all safe from harm. It didn't take long for Nick to fall asleep. I placed the twins in a cradle together and rolled it next to the bed. They both fell asleep in each other's arms. Gemma had told me that is a twin thing. I lay back down on the bed and took Nick and Gemma in my arms, and fell into the most peaceful sleep of my life. Gemma's POV. 1 month later, a piercing cry aroused me from sleep, then another joined in. I sighed heavily as I rolled onto my back. It felt like I had just gotten back to sleep after nursing the twins, but here they were, crying again. "It's your turn," I mumbled to Cassius, and I looked over to see him opening his eyes. "I'm up," he sat up as they continued to cry. Their little cradles were at the photo of our bed. Even though they had a beautiful nursery, I insisted they sleep in our room until they got older. He stood up and walked over to the cradle they shared and placed his hands on their little tummies, and they both stopped crying. "How does that only work with you?" I said as he leaned down to sniff them. He shrugged. "I'm the calmer parent," he mumbled out as he scooped up Daisy and carried her into the bathroom. I sighed and got out of bed as Malcolm started to cry again. He did not like his twin to be far away from him. "Oh, Maki," I cooed at my son as I picked him up. My nose wrinkled at the apparent reason he was crying. He and Daisy were good at syncing their needs. Both were hungry at the same time. They needed changing at the same time. Daisy seemed to be the bolder one and often instigated the crying where Malcolm followed his sister's lead. Malcolm quieted as I carried him into the bathroom. Cassius was nearly done changing Daisy. "What do you feed these two?" Tit juice," I replied. He rolled his eyes as he picked up Daisy and placed her on his bare shoulder. "Okay, hand me Malcolm, and you take Daisy." We exchanged babies, and I carried Daisy out of the bathroom and sat on the couch. I looked into her violet eyes that resembled mine. Everyone told me that she looked just like me. She had the same platinum blonde hair. My mother said she has my nose. I kissed her little forehead as I heard Malcolm crying from the bathroom. He missed his twin. Moments later, Cassius carried him out of the bathroom. My maid sat beside me and placed Malcolm on his bare chest. The pup immediately quieted as I placed Daisy beside her twin on their father's chest. Cassius smiled broadly as he gently cradles them. I lay my head on his shoulder and stroked my baby's little backs. Malcolm looked more like Cassius, but he also had blonde hair and violet eyes as I had. "Moments like this are my favorite," Cassius said to me as the twins fell asleep on his chest. "Mine too," I responded to him. I glanced back at the clock on my end table, and it was getting close to the time we're supposed to wake up. Today was my first day back in the office. Yesterday I had begun training again. I had an excellent first session with my new friend Stephanie. She nearly had me beat as I was rusty after being out for 3 months. But then my alpha blood kicked in, and I beat her back. She said she was honored to train with me. So it was decided she would be my regular sparring partner. Today I would be in the office and no training. It bummed me out a little as I preferred warrior training over office work. Cassius was excited to show me the changes he had made in the office. He had it remodeled so that there was a mini nursery for the twins to stay near us while we worked. We wanted to raise our children the old-fashioned way and not rely on nannies. Nicky also came to the office after lunch. He liked spending mornings at pup care after his grandmother Liz had decided to move to her sister's pack. Izzy had said she would help out with the pups a few days a week. She was quite the hands-on grandmother. She decided that she would be called Grammy by the pups as my mother had dibs on Grandma. We both dozed off for a few minutes until the alarm clock went off, waking up the twins, causing them to cry, but they were quieted as Cassius stroked their backs. "Should I shower first or you?" I asked him. "I'll wait here while you go first, love," he replied as he cooed at his pups. There was no prouder father in the kingdom than my mate. He was the most devoted father to our pups, and I could not be happier. I kissed each of my pups and then Cassius. "I wish you were joining me. Maybe tonight, love." It had been almost 2 months since we had X. After giving birth, Angela told me to wait to heal. Luckily werewolves take less time to heal after giving birth than humans. "Actually, I think we should go for a run tonight. Enoch has been aching to run with Leonora. I think that may be a good idea. Leonora hasn't been out in 4 months, and she needs her mate too." "Oh, thank the goddess," she murmured in my head. I laughed at my wolf's comment. "We'll get your parents to watch the kids, and we'll go for a nice long run," I said to him as I kissed him again. "You don't have to ask my mother twice to watch her grandchildren." He smirked and kissed me back. I pulled away from him and ran into the bathroom. After showering, I put on a pair of jeans and a button-up white shirt with flowers on it. It felt nice to wear jeans again. I was happy that I was able to fit in my regular clothes again. I pulled my hair into a ponytail and exited the closet. Cassius had put the twins in their cradle, and they were sleeping. I went and got Nikki up and ready for the day. Cassius walked out of the closet as I returned with Nikki on my hip. I admired my handsome mate. He has dressed in dark jeans and a light blue button-up shirt while his brown hair was slicked back. My king is a tasty morsel," I mused and set Nikki down. "Hello Nick," Cassius greeted our eldest son. "Hi Daddy," Nikki responded, and Cassius scooped him up and kissed his cheek. "Are you ready for breakfast?" he asked our pup. "Yes, Daddy." He set Nikki down and picked up Daisy. I picked up Malcolm and grabbed Nikki's hand. We then walked out of the room. Terry and Izzy were waiting for the elevators as we approached. Izzy smiled as she had to look at each of the twins. "Those two get more and more beautiful every day." She reached to take Malcolm from my arms, and I let her. She rocked her grandson and kissed his forehead. The elevator door opened, and we squeezed inside as Titus and Ainsley joined us and crowded into the elevator. "Good morning, everyone." She greeted us while rubbing her growing belly. "How are you feeling this morning?" I asked her. Gracie woke me up kicking like mad. Opened my eyes, and Titus was laying on my belly. She smiled at her fiancé. He shrugged and smirked. "She seems to know I am her dad." We all laughed as the doors opened, and we filed out and headed towards the dining room. Cassius and I lead the way. I looked back at Izzy, who had Malcolm. Of course, he was safe in his grandmother's arms, but I was still a protective mother. We walked into the dining room, and everyone rose to their feet. "Good morning, everyone. It is the dawn of another beautiful day. I'd like to welcome my mate and queen back to work. It has been quite tiring to run this kingdom on my own. So with that, let's all enjoy breakfast this morning." He sat down with Daisy still in his arms. Izzy was happily holding Malcolm as the Omegas brought out breakfast. Nikki was beside me in his chair, and I smiled. I had the urge to know where all three of my pups were at every second I breathed. I looked down as breakfast was set in front of me. It was country fried steak and eggs this morning. My mouth watered as I dug into the food. Cassius, Gemma, Titus said out loud all of a sudden. I know it's Gemma's first day back, but there is something I must discuss with you this morning. Cassius raised an eyebrow as he looked at his brother-in-law. The tone of your voice would indicate it's something important. Yes, it is. That is why I would like to discuss it in private. He nodded at Cassius. Ainsley grabbed the vampire's hand. What's wrong, babe? She asked him. It's just something I have to discuss with Cassius and Gemma. You may accompany me to speak with them. He looked at Cassius again. If that is all right that Ainsley joins us. Sure, she can join, Cassius responded. He glanced at me. Any idea what he needs to discuss? His mind linked me. No idea. But it sounds important. I heard Malcolm whimper and looked to see Terry was now holding him. My pup appeared fine, but his whimpers alarmed the protective mother she-wolf instinct in me. So, Terry, Izzy, would it be possible for you guys to watch the pups tonight? Cassius and I would like to take a wolf run tonight. My girl hasn't been out in a long time. Terry smiled at his first grandson, the future king of werewolves. His blue eyes looked up at me. Then he glanced at Izzy. Isabel, I do believe our daughter-in-law is asking if we can watch her pups so she and our son can have X in the woods. Dad! Cassius nearly yelled at him. Terry and Izzy laughed while Terry shrugged. Your dad is a touchy one, Malcolm, Terry cooed at our son. Of course, we'll watch the pups tonight, Izzy finally replied. You know you two don't need a reason. Thank you, Iz, I said to her. I finished my food as Malcolm began to cry, which caused Daisy to start crying. I think they are hungry again. I stood up and walked over to Terry to take my son from him. I'd feed him myself, but my asterisk aren't producing milk, Terry snickered at me. I rolled my eyes, carried Malcolm back to my seat, and began unbuttoning my shirt as both twins cried. Cassius was doing his best to soothe our daughter. Okay, everyone, don't look. I'm about to feed my pups. Malcolm began to feed while Cassius helped me get Daisy into position so she could nurse also. Once both pups were latched, I sighed. I smiled at them. Mommy, Nicky spoke up. Can I go with Nico and Angie? He asked as Angela stood beside him with Nico. I can take him to pup care for you, she offered. Thank you, Ange. I looked at Nicky. You be good for Angela and the pup care ladies. All right. He hopped off his seat and walked over to me. He looked at his little brother and sister. They are very hungry. Yes, they are. Babies are always hungry. That's what will help them grow into big strong wolves like their big brother, I said to him. Bye, Mommy. Bye, Daddy. He said as Angela clasped his hand. The twins soon finished feeding, and Cassius took Daisy from my arms to burp her while I did the same with Malcolm. I fixed my shirt and looked at Cassius. So let's go get to work. We stood up and started out of the dining room with Titus and Ainsley following us. Cassius led me into the office and then opened the door that leads into the little nursery that he had fixed up. I smiled at the space. It was small but big enough to contain everything we needed for the twins while we worked. A single crib and changing table sat against the wall that had been painted in pastel rainbow colors. "I love it," I said to my mate. He smiled as he set Daisy in the crib. I placed Malcolm next to her, and the two fell asleep, comforted by their twin. I leaned down to kiss them on their little foreheads. "I can't believe we made these two beautiful little souls, Cass." He wrapped his around my waist and kissed my temple. "Oh, this little nursery is adorable," Ainsley said from the doorway. I had forgotten she and Titus had followed us. "Isn't it, though? Cass did a good job with it. Who knew my big brother had such a knack for interior design?" She laughed. "Well, Mom helped," Cassius confessed. "Of course she did," Ainsley laughed as we walked out of the room. Titus was sitting in one of the chairs in front of the desk. The vampire was casually dressed in jeans and a white t-shirt. Ainsley sat on his lap, and he wrapped his arm around her waist. Cassius and I sat behind our desk. "So, what did you need to discuss?" Cassius asked Titus. "I know that your daughter is mated to Crown Prince Dominic." I lifted an eyebrow at him. The news that our daughter was the mate of the future king of vampires was something that we wanted to keep secret. Only our families and a select few friends would know. Ainsley told me. He said and glanced at her. "Sorry, Cass, Gemma." She shrank against her fiancé. Titus sighed. "Don't worry. I have no plans to go around telling everyone. I may not live in his court any longer, but King Romulus is still king, and I honor him and his family," Titus explained. "I came here to tell you I pledge my protection of Princess Daisy." "My daughter has plenty of protections, Titus," Cassius nearly growled. Titus looked directly at us. His red eyes were always a little unnerving when he looks us dead on. The vampires were already unhappy that their king married a werewolf. Then to add insult to injury, their next king will be a hybrid. They are not happy at the prospect of being ruled by a werewolf, and if they find out the Prince Dominic's fated mate is also a werewolf, well, they may be war. They may be carnage. King Romulus assures us that all would be fine. The king, though a good one, is a little removed from the common vampires. I have heard the words of my brethren as they discuss the future king. Some are all right with Prince Dominic. Others not so much. It is rumored that they will demand that King Romulus must make the prince into a full vampire before ascending to the throne. He can be made into a full vampire?" I asked with genuine curiosity. Titus nodded. "Yes, the king has that ability. But it would also mean his wolf has to die." Leonora whined in my head. "Will they demand Aurora's death also?" she asked me. "I don't know. The queen still has her wolf, and she is part vampire." I told my wolf before turning my attention back to Titus. "I am offering my protection because if it is made known, your daughter is Prince Dominic's mate, then some of the rebel vampires may try to attack her. I would give my life to protect her. I am still loyal to the crown." Cassius growled lowly. "My daughter has plenty of protection, and any vampire that tries to attack my daughter in my kingdom will be met with a violent and swift death." I can detect their presence better than your wolves can, Cassius, Titus offered. I hate to brag, but I was once one of the king's generals. I fought for him for centuries. I placed my hand on his. It won't hurt to have at least another eye on our daughter, Cass. I looked at Titus. I don't want you to take too much time from your family, Titus. He looked at Ainsley. I have decided to live here in the palace with Ainsley and our daughter. Terence has offered one of the suites on the second floor to us. I feel strongly compelled to protect my future queen. I hope you understand. Cassius leaned back in his seat and glanced at me. We accept your offer, Titus. I would prefer your only role in her life is as her uncle. But I cannot turn down extra protection of my daughter. I will inform King Romulus of my intentions. We are still close friends. I do intend to work for him as a lawyer, but that can wait. Cassius shrugged. I could always use a lawyer around here, brother. The current one is set to retire soon as he served under my father. Is that a job offer? Titus leaned forward. Maybe. Do you accept? Titus looked at Ainsley. What do you think, darling? Hey, I think it's awesome, babe. She leaned down to kiss him. His arms wrapped her, and their kiss deepened. Cassius shifted in his seat, clearly uncomfortable. He cleared his throat. Is there anything else you needed to say, Titus? No, fine, then get out of my office before you and my sister get any more hot and heavy. The vampire stood up with Ainsley in his arms. He set her down. I apologize for that. We will see you later. He clasped Ainsley's hand. Bye Cass, Gemma. Ainsley waved at us as Titus led her out of the office. Cassius blew out a long breath and ran his hand over his face. You are all right with Titus being our daughter's protector? Why wouldn't I be okay with that? While I trust our guards to protect our children from any danger and I know you would give your life to protect them. It doesn't hurt to have yet another set of capable eyes to watch over her. I understand what Titus was getting at. Guinevere told me about how many of the vampires under her husband's role still do not like that she is their queen. Even though she is a hybrid and she has been queen for 60 years. I did not know it was that bad. Well, so far, they only voice their opposition. No one has tried to overthrow Romulus. Gin also told me that the Vampire Council tried to get Romulus to have a vampire or even human produce his heir. But he refused. They'd be okay with a human producing their heir but not a werewolf. I shrugged. The offspring of a vampire born from a human would be a full vampire. Unfortunately, Gin told me that the human mother never lives long after birth. Whereas as a werewolf, she handled the pregnancy and birth just fine. I shuddered thinking of it. Cassius clasped my hand. I pray to the moon goddess that our little daughter will be just fine. She must have a good reason to have pair Daisy with a vampire hybrid. Tuatha mentioned the rise of the demons. I shivered at the thought. That won't be for at least 20 years, so we will have plenty of time to prepare. We both sighed before we decided to plunge headfirst into work. That seemed to take our minds off of our children's uncertain future. We worked diligently for hours, taking time out to care for the twins. I sat through mediation by myself while Cassius stayed with the twins. Finally, the end of the day rolled around, and we had dinner with Terry and Izzy before leaving all 3 pups with them. I stood out on the balcony of our room. The sun was setting, bathing the sky in bright colors. I had on a light dress as I waited for Cassius to join me on the run. Leonora was pacing in my head, eager to get out. Strong arms wrapped around me, and he pulled me to his chest as he kissed my shoulder. "You look beautiful tonight, my queen." He held me for a moment, and we watched the sunset in silence. "Are you ready to run?" "Oh goddess, yes." Leonora is about to burst out me. I replied to him as we kissed. He let go of me and backed away. He started to take off his clothes. I took off the dress I was wearing. He growled and pulled me close to him. "Cass, no one can see us." "I don't care. You are mine and mine only," he growled in my ear. "Now shift." I smirked and kissed him on the cheek before backing away from his hold. "Are you ready, Leonora?" "More than ready, Gemma." Deep breath. "This may hurt," she said as I let her take over. The pain from the shift only lasted a minute. She shook out her pure white fur. A wet muzzle nudged our side as Cassius had shifted into Enoch. Violet eyes looked into deep ocean blue ones. "It's been too long since I have seen you, my beautiful mate," Enoch said to us. Leonora nuzzled his black fur and took a deep breath. "My handsome mate," she mused. "Okay, you two, no hanky-panky. I am not ready to get pregnant again," I told them as they both whined. "Fine, Killjoy," Enoch mumbled. Leonora laughed as she circled Enoch before leaping over the balcony's railing and landing on the ground. We took a glance back before taking off to the trees. It wasn't long before Enoch had caught up. The 2 wolves yipped happily as they ran. Happy to be together once again as the moon rose above the trees, blessing us with her silvery light. Cassius's POV. 3 years later I stood on a hill overlooking the park as my children and my nieces and nephews played in a field of daisies. Today was their 3rd birthday and my 28th birthday. And Gemma chose to celebrate the occasion in her way. A simple party in the park with barbecue food and dancing and laughing. It didn't make my mother very happy, but she seemed to be enjoying herself. I looked at her talking to my very pregnant mate. Gemma was due to give birth to our 4th child any day now. Another boy we decided to name Lincoln. "Daddy, watch me." I looked down to see my now 3-year-old son Malcolm pulling me towards the other pups. His twin Daisy played Barbies with her cousins Gracie and Tiffany's 2-year-old twins Ruby and Pearl. Nick was playing tag with his best friends Nico and Henry. "What am I watching, Malcolm?" I asked my son. He often played alone in group settings. It worried me that he was the introverted type and preferred being alone. He needed to come out of his shell if he was to be king someday. Though my parents told me I was the same way at his age. So there was hope he would grow out of it. "Look what I can do," Malcolm replied and did a cartwheel. I clapped my hands. "Good job, Malcolm." I praised him. He jumped up and did a few more cartwheels. He was giggling madly the whole time. "Hey Malcolm, awesome job," came Ian's voice. He and his mate Esther were walking towards me. He was now the alpha of Zephyr Moon Pack. And he was doing an extraordinary job at it. His father had taught him well. Ian was taking the pack places that even the great Philip Mackenzie hadn't thought to. Malcolm ran over to his uncle, who picked him up. Esther smiled at my son as she rubbed her belly. She was pregnant with her and Ian's first pup. "Hi, Uncle Ian. Did you see my cartwheels?" "I did," Ian replied to his nephew as my 6-year-old son Nick ran over to him. "Uncle Ian," Nick hugged him. "Hey, Nick. How are you today?" Ian greeted him. I left my sons talking to their uncle and ambled over to my daughter and nieces. I knelt beside my daughter, and she held up a Barbie whose hair she was brushing. "What are you girls doing?" "Playing Barbies, Daddy," Daisy responded. "This one is getting married to Pearl's Barbie." She pointed to her cousin. Pearl held up a Barbie in a wedding dress. "They are both girls, but Mommy says girls are allowed to get married." She giggled. I smiled at them. "That they are. My best friend is a girl, and she is married to another girl." I told them to refer to Angela and Maria, who were now talking to Gemma. Angela was holding their 1-year-old daughter, Eloise, whom they had adopted as a newborn. Gemma was cooing at the little girl. "Well, you girls have fun." I kissed the top of Daisy's head. I stood up, and Garrett, Pearl, and Ruby's father was standing nearby watching them. Moments later, he was joined by Ian. The two embraced as I walked towards them. Garrett was now the alpha of Fire Mountain Pack, and he and Ian had forged a tight alliance between their packs. They felt that the Red and White Wolf lines should be allies. But Ian maintained the Fire Mountain secret. It was still not common knowledge that Garrett's family were the last of the Red Wolves. "Hey Cass, how is it going, old man?" Garrett laughed as I joined him and Ian. "Old man?" I snorted as I slapped his shoulder. "Well, you are the oldest one out of our generation," Ian stated. "So old man fits. I'm not even 30 yet. And I may be the oldest, but I am pretty sure I can kick both of your asses." Ian got into a fighting stance, and we exchanged a few blows before we noticed looks from our mates. Gemma was glaring at me with her hands on her hips with Esther standing next to her. "Busted," Garrett laughed. "Daddy." I heard my niece Gracie shout and watched as she jumped up and ran towards Titus, who had been on a trip to the Vampire Kingdom. He had been gone for a week, so no doubt Gracie was happy to see him. My sister was close behind her daughter as she embraced her husband. Then Daisy looked up. "Dominic." She jumped up and ran towards him. He had just arrived with his parents Romulus and Guinevere. She hugged her mate. We didn't tell them that they were mates. But they had figured it out. Mate had been Daisy's first word. From the time he met her after she was born, Dominic has been protective of her. He doesn't even like her being near her brothers. Romulus said he would work with his son on that. I shook Romulus's hand and then his wife's hand. "Hey, I see you made it." "Dominic would have been very unhappy had we not," Romulus replied. We looked at the pups. Dominic had a protective arm around Daisy. We had all agreed that we would push Dominic and Daisy to be together later in their lives, but from the looks of it, we didn't have to do anything. Their bond would grow on its own. Right now, at 3 and 7, they were just best friends. but it was clear they felt the connection. Guinevere walked over to Gemma, and she was talking with the other females. Titus walked over to us and bowed to his king. "Your Majesty," he said to Romulus. "Titus," Romulus acknowledged him. We talked for a few minutes when suddenly the ground shook, and lightning flashed, causing the pups to all scream and scramble to their parents. My pups ran towards Gemma, and they hid behind her as I looked towards the cause of the disturbance. In a flurry of smoke, Tuatha, the wizard, stepped out. He was in his usual cloak of black. He smiled and stalked towards us. "What wizard?" "Dropping in as usual and scaring the crap out of my children." Tuatha merely rolled his eyes at me. "Oh, chill out, brother," he mumbled to me. I turned to see Romulus standing beside me. The Vampire King merely laughed at the wizard's comment. Tuatha looked towards Ruby and Pearl, who were behind Tiffany and Garrett. He waved at them. "I see my great-granddaughters are getting on well." "Oh, wait, I mean great-great-granddaughters. Or whatever. I have so many descendants it's hard to keep track of them." He brushed past me and headed towards the large table full of food. "May I have some ribs?" "What is it with you and ribs?" I asked him. Gemma waddled up to us. "So, what brings you here this time, Tuatha?" she asked the wizard. "Ribs," he mumbled between bites. I glanced at Gemma, and she shook her head. "Well, enjoy yourself." She started to walk towards the twins. "Wait, there is something I came to talk to you both about." The wizard was still eating a rib and had sauce all over his face and beard. I picked up a napkin and handed it to him. "Another vision?" Gemma asked him. He nodded. "Your eldest son will be instrumental in helping the fairies return." Gemma and I exchanged glances. "Fairies? I thought they were extinct," I said to him. The fairies had been relentlessly hunted for years. My father had offered to help them, but their king wouldn't accept the help. About 15 years they just disappeared. No one has seen or heard from a single fairy since then. They are not extinct. Their king just sealed off the entrance to their realm. He felt it was the only way to protect his people. I am one of the few from this realm with who he still communicates with. We tried to help them many years ago, Romulus interjected, but their king was too prideful to accept my help. King Tylo is just that. Full of pride. Tuatha offered. He felt that accepting help from either werewolves or vampires would prove him a weak king. So that's why he denied help. But I digress, the wizard wiped sauce from his face. He looked at Gemma and I. "Like I said, your eldest son will be instrumental in helping them return. We need the fairies to fight back the demons." "How is Nikki going to be instrumental?" Gemma asked with concern. "I'm afraid I cannot reveal that to you. You will find out when he is about 18 years old." "He is 6, Tuatha," I stated. "Why tell us now?" The wizard shrugged. "I felt I needed to. Anyways, that is all I needed to say. So I'll take my leave now." "Wait, you don't have to leave. You can stay and enjoy the party and some more ribs." Gemma smiled with her offer. The wizard smiled at her. "I would like that, actually." "Thank you, Queen Gemma. I need to catch up with Garrett anyways. He started towards where Garrett was standing with Tiffany and their twins. I shook my head and took a deep breath. Romulus laughed. Every day brings more news of the future, which makes it hard to focus on the present, he mused. The vampire had a very valid point. You are so right, ROM. I laughed and looked down at my pups. Okay, kids, who want to play tag? I wanted to lighten the mood. They all squealed and ran off. I looked at Gemma. Want to play tag? She gave me a pointed look while rubbing her belly. I would love to, but you keep putting me out of commission. She laughed. I leaned down to kiss her. Her arms wrapped around my neck, and we deepened the kiss. Daddy! Nick shouted at me. I reluctantly pulled away from Gemma. Right. Tag. I laughed and kissed Gemma once more before running into the field to play tag with the pups. Ian and my beta Deke joined me and the pups. He had arrived late with his mate and daughter. Lila was introverted like Malcolm. She and my son were best friends, and he had walked off with her. They sat on the edge of the field playing with the flowers. I returned to the game with the other pups. Nick kept looking beyond the field through the trees. What's wrong, Nick? I feel like someone is watching me. He replied and then shrugged and ran towards the other pups to play tag. I looked where Nick had been looking and sensed nothing. Still, I mind-linked the patrollers to be on the lookout for anything unusual. The rest of the party was spent playing with the pups and eating lots of food. As the sun was setting, I was dancing with my pregnant mate. She was much more mobile this time than she had been with the twins. She wasn't suffering from the same fatigue and pain, which meant that Lincoln was most likely not a white wolf. After a bit of dancing, she retired to sitting with her mother and my mother while I danced with my daughter and nieces. As the last song ended, I felt someone trying to break through my mind's wall. I looked to where Gemma had been with our mothers, and she was gone, so I lowered the wall. Gemma, I called to her. Where are you? In the bathroom, my water just broke. Unknown POV. I stood in the trees on a hill, looking at the field below where the werewolf's royal family was throwing a birthday party. The wind blew my black cloak tight against my body as I spied the blonde-haired pup that looked like me. He played happily while smiling at the man he called father. The man was not his father, just the one who stole the term. I am his father, and someday I would reclaim him and his mother, the woman I still loved with everything. Why are we standing here again, Jeremy? A voice in my head asked. I sighed. I just needed to see my son. That blonde whelp you keep staring at. The voice replied. Yes, Murdoch. That is my son Nicholas. Murdoch scoffed. Scrawny little thing. And the fat one you keep staring at. That is the woman you love. She is not fat. She is pregnant once again by her brute of a mate. Sorry, I am a demon. I am not familiar with how reproduction works with earthly beings. He snarled in my head as a hand grabbed mine. I looked at my companion Felicia. She is a witch. The one who had resurrected me. After being brought back, I was now possessed by a demon named Murdoch. He mostly let me do my own thing. But I made a deal with him that I was to build an army of rogue supernaturals to ally with demons so they could rise when the time was right. He let me use some of his demon powers like speed, super hearing, and super eyesight. It was almost like having a wolf again. But I was no longer a werewolf, just a man with a demon in his head. But I had demon powers, so I went with it. Felicia clasped my hand. Come along, Jeremy. We have more rogues to recruit. She smiled at me. She and I had become lovers over the last few years. However, I would never feel for her the way I did about Gemma. She said a few magic words and opened a portal back to our home where we were building the army Murdoch wanted. She clasped my hand and started leading me into the portal. I looked back at the field where my son was. He stopped playing and looked straight at me, and for a moment, I wonder if he saw me. Our eyes met. Even though I was quite far, but I saw him clearly thanks to Murdoch's super eyesight. I smiled at him. I am coming back for you, Nicholas. Back for you and your mother. I said out loud as the portal closed. Join our Facebook and WhatsApp group for more updates, link is given in description. Rest audiobook will be continued in next episode.